Welcome to the Kim and Jerry podcast, your source for all things mortgage notes and passive real estate strategies. Whether you're considering mortgage notes as a business model or exploring passive real estate opportunities, we've got you covered. Unlocking the secrets of financial success, one mortgage note at a time. With expert insights, pro tips, and engaging conversations.
Hi, Jerry.
Hi, Kim. How are you today?
Well, thanks. How about you?
Very good, thanks.
Good. Thanks for joining me at the Kim and Jerry podcast, of course. I do have a particular subject I'd like to talk about, but before we get started, let me go ahead and give our disclaimer, which is, of course, that we're here for education, information purposes. We are not CPAs, attorneys, lawyers, or financial planners, I said. But nevertheless, we want to share with our community and our investors what we know and what we do and our expertise. And as we continue to move in this strategy of note investing, we just want to keep everybody on par with what's going on. And the reason I'm saying this is because we are known for investing in non-performing notes. I've had a couple of people come up to me and, said, how did I even get into non-performing note investing? Why non-performing note investing? What in the world, right? And so I like to talk about that with you. And, maybe our discussion will help shed some light on, the whole non-performing note industry as it pertains to investing. So I know you have a lot to say on this. I thank you for introducing me to non-performing notes. So let's get started with our discussion and see where it goes.
Sounds good. So, Kim, we invest in grade A non-performing notes.
Can I just stop you right there?
Yeah.
Grade A non-performing notes. Do you realize, that's an oxymoron in itself, just it confuses the matter from the very beginning. So I'm going to let you finish, but I just want to, highlight that. Okay.
So we invest in grade A non-performing notes. So what does that mean?
Grade A.
I will say often, and you've heard this before, bad things happen to good people.
Yeah.
People lose their jobs, they get sick, medical issues, they get divorced, they die. All kinds of things happen to folks that, are bad.
Right.
For that event, the note that they had on their house, the mortgage, was grade A.
Yeah.
So, but when we say that, we throw out grade A all the time, but we don't give any parameters around that.
Right.
So what is a grade A note? A grade A note, you have equity in your house and not an insignificant amount of equity in your house. You've been paying consistently for years. You have a good FICO score. You've been living in the house for, probably over 6-7 years. It's a nice house in a good location. All your paperwork is in order. And, because we do seconds, you're current on your first mortgage.
Right.
So all of those things say grade A.
Right.
Now then you lost your job and you missed some payments. Or you got sick and you had some major medical bills and that you deferred your payments. You and your spouse went your separate ways. All of those things don't make you a bad borrower. It means that the note is, it's a troubled note. It may be in default, but at the root of that, it's a good note.
It's a good note. That's a good way of putting it. But at the root of it, it's a good note. It's a grade A note, right? And so there are times when seasons, may cause different things to bloom differently, if you will, or present differently. But the root of it is good. And, you can expect change from
Yeah.
this because of the root of it, right? So that's a
Yeah.
good way of
Yeah.
expressing that.
So that's how we look at notes. That's how we evaluate notes. The other thing, you've heard us say this all the time, there are only three things that can happen with a note. The
Right,
borrower pays as agreed, they pay it off early, or they fail to pay.
right,
With a
right.
non-performing note, those are the only three things that can happen also.
It's still collateralized the same way as
It's,
a performing note, right?
it's the same note. The only difference is on the first of the month, I did not get paid. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So we get that note. And like I said, three things can happen. We'll either get the borrower performing, we'll figure out some kind of way to do that, maybe modify the loan. The borrower may sell the house, they may pay off refinance the house in some kind of way, we get paid early. And then in a very small number of cases, we wind up going to foreclosure.
Right,
And in foreclosure, ultimately, same things are going to happen. You get paid off in full.
right,
So that's why we'll say it's a grade A note. Again, yeah, you're right. It's oxymoron. It sounds weird, but it's a note that has a borrower that has some problems. And we're just going to, and we are known to work with borrowers to help them get through those problems.
right.
As a matter of
I
fact,
think that the appreciation of the status of the note is gained during due diligence, right? Because it's not just the note that gives the quality associated with the note, right? During due diligence, we're looking at many factors that support the status of the note, right? That, like you said, we look at the borrower, we look at the payment history, we look at how they're invested, especially emotionally in their property, right? That the note is associated with, right?
yes,
And then, of course, all the other due diligence that goes along with that note. What kind of property is it? Where is it located? Right? Is it in a desirable neighborhood? You know, how does the neighborhood look? I mean, there are just so many other factors that we tick off, right, during due diligence that actually gives a status to a note. And while it may be a non-performing note right now, there may be so many other qualities about that note that moves it into that space that, this is still a good note. This is a grade A note, as you would say, right?
yeah,
And, until you go through that process or you have appreciation of, that due diligence that takes place, it will always sound like an oxymoron, right? It would always sound like a grade A non-performing note. And sometimes that might be unfair to the investment, which is okay because that's what we do, right?
yeah,
We invest in non-performing notes heavily. So,
absolutely. Absolutely. And as we're talking about that, I was on the phone a couple of nights ago with a borrower that we hold both the first and the second mortgage to, and they hadn't
mhm,
made some payments in a while. And I talked to that borrower before, and we had helped them get back into making their note current.
mhm.
And I'm talking to them, and we started, we're just laughing it up about, well, you're not paying. And, you know, I know you're gonna pay because
Because they've been paying. Somebody's paying.
you've been paying on this note for 25 years.
Okay. Yeah.
You
See, now
have
there goes a factor that I was talking about, right? I'm
you
sorry.
have
Good.
$10,000 left as a $400,000 house. So
Yeah,
the wife and I are just laughing about, oh yeah, of course I'm going to pay. I'm not going to let you
exactly.
take my $400,000 house, you know. And talking to them, good people. Bad things happen. Both she and her husband lost their jobs temporarily, and she was calling to see, hey, can I make a payment today and then catch up next month? Of course.
Of course.
I don't want your house. I want you to stay in your house. Um,
And
and
that's a good point. Can I just elaborate on that a little bit? Because, as investors, some people think that because we do invest heavily in non-performing notes, we're looking to push it through the funnel of foreclosure because it's not performing. And that's not the case at all. What we are looking at is the factors that we were just discussing, right? This person has a $400,000 house that has a balance on a HELOC, of $10,000. That's a grade A note because they're not going to let that note, that $10,000, take down their $400,000 house. So we get to the bottom of it, try to figure out what's going on, right? If they don't call us, we call them, and see what we can do to make that work, to make the note a reperforming note, right? To make it an even better note than what it is being categorized today as a non-performing note. But the value that it brings to the investor who invested in that note, it's everything. And it's not something that should be ignored because it's a non-performing note, right? It's
Yeah.
turns out to be a better investment at times, when you get to the bottom of why it's a non-performing note.
Absolutely, Kim. That is totally true. And one of the things that I'd like to do now is just kind of talk a couple of brief case studies
Okay.
about what this whole concept of a grade A non-performing note means. And we're just talking a second ago about this one particular transaction where we own both the first and the second mortgage on this property. We bought them as a package, and the reason I have a pretty good rapport with the borrowers is that when we bought the note, they called me directly, out of the blue. And it's like, hey, we've been trying to pay on this loan for months, and we didn't know who to call. And we've got this letter in the mail. Your name is on it. So what do we do? And that was the husband. The spouse said, "Give me the phone." we
Of course.
It was, how much do we owe? Gave her a number. Okay, we're going to send it to you now. It's like, okay. So when I say there are three things that can happen on that particular note, we owned that note for about 2.5 weeks, and the borrowers brought it current.
Yeah.
So we're whole.
Right.
So why is it a grade A? We bought a non-performer, owned it for 3 weeks, and now it's a performing note.
And
Now,
all because there was a miss in where to make the payment. And
yes.
it wasn't as though they were ignoring the payment. It was just that because the note was going through the transition of moving from one market to the next,
Yep.
who do we send our payment to? Because
Yeah.
I know the last thing I want to do is send a payment and not get credit for it, right?
Oh, yeah.
Because because I thought it was going to go there, or they would make sure it got to the right person.
No.
You can't depend on that either. So
Trust me. No. And I understand that. And
right,
when like I said, the spouse said, "Give me the phone." And it's like,
right,
we're
right.
calling, and we'll get stuck on hold for 15 minutes and blah blah blah. And it's like, all right, cool, you got me. Send, I will make sure you get credited because it's just my note. So
Right.
and that worked. Now again, unbeknownst to them, as soon as they got caught up, lose their jobs, and they don't pay for a few months. They get some letters in the mail. They call me up. Hey, we talked to you before. Can I send you some money? And they're going to be back current again. It's a grade A note, and
Right.
we've done well, and the borrowers have done well. And again, they have a house that it's that's their house. They'll live in it for as long as they want.
Right.
Have another situation again, reperforming note. We bought the note, and I don't think we had this. I know we didn't have this note a month. And I'm checking with the servicing company, and I see like 40 payments. It's like, I'm thinking the computer has made a mistake.
Mm,
And again, it was a situation where spouse had passed away. And I guess, in the course of all of that, they forgot they had this loan. They get a letter from us saying, hey, we're the new lenders. Here's where you can send your money. You are currently in arrears. Here's how much you're in arrears, how many payments, what the total is, blah, 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 blah. One check. Paid it. Now they're current. And
right,
they've been making payments for the last couple of years.
right,
So we bought it. Again, oxymoron says, what is a grade A non-performing note? The borrower started to pay when they knew where to send the money.
right. No, no,
And what I find in this business, because all of us, when we get a mortgage, the mortgages are sold to another company or a new servicing company or whatever, and you can get confused as to where to send my money.
exactly. And I find that, especially with seconds, non-performing notes, right? They all have a story, especially if they have a performing first in front
Yeah,
of them, right?
yeah,
You know, to me, automatically I'm saying, okay, there's a story behind this second.
yeah,
People who are paying their first and
yes,
their other bills, and like you said, the FICO scores, et cetera, are good. You know, there's something going on with that second, right? And
yeah,
you have to find out what's the backstory. I don't know if I've told the story, but I remember having a non-performing second, and there was a divorce, right?
yeah.
And she got the house, right? She didn't know about the second, right? He thought she was paying the second because she got the house, right? And so she's not paying the second because she doesn't know anything about the second. She just knows she got the house, right? So it wasn't until there was clarification till we understood what the dynamics were, okay, and then they wanted to make arrangements immediately. Okay, there was no argument. He agreed. This is a note that the confusion as to who got what in the separation, right? But then it became a performing note. They made a down payment, then he kept making the payment on the note. But
Yeah,
that's what I mean by there was a story behind that
yeah,
note because it just didn't make sense. It doesn't fall in line with the rest of what was going on, and with the credit report, with the payments, with the first. And so
absolutely.
that goes back to, this was a grade A non-performing note, right?
Yeah,
And so there are so many of these out there. It's unbelievable, and how many times that people are ready to, resolve it, ready to pay it off, ready to take care of it. Tell me what I can do. It's amazing to me
yeah,
how these slip through the cracks and are considered, you know, maybe a bad investment or a non-performing note or anything like that. But, for the most part, there are a few stories that we can tell about those as well. But for the most part, you know, people want to work this out.
yeah.
Now, I love the story of a non-performing note, and we don't need to get into it here, but I just want to share it, where, the guy says, you have the wrong John Smith. yeah,
That would be
yeah.
another podcast.
Beg your pardon?
That would be another podcast.
That's
He's,
another podcast.
yeah,
You have the wrong John. So,
yeah,
but that's another story behind, the second. And, we need those every now and then. So, okay. So I took over, but it, it,
it's
it, it, it kind of brings in the whole picture of a non-performing note. And,
yes,
and back to your point, while we're talking about seconds, there are non-performing first as well.
mhm,
And you have to get to the bottom of it. You just have to find out, why is it a non-performing, right?
yeah,
It was performing. What happened?
Yeah,
And what can we do to make it performing again, right?
absolutely.
What is it that's would be a good solution, right? You like to say that we're solution makers, right?
Yes. Yeah.
Um, what is the solution that would be good for both of us, both for, the borrower as well as for us,
Yeah.
or, an investor. So,
Absolutely. Absolutely. And, you know, another case study I have, again, when we buy, we're looking at our notes, we're doing our due diligence. We actually send people out to the house that we're looking at the mortgage on to make sure that the house is there. you know,
right,
and,
the house is there. That's another story.
yeah, another podcast.
Another podcast.
Um, in this one case, we sent our folks out to the house. They took pictures, and in one of the pictures, I saw a for sale sign. So I knew, again, why is it a grade A note? We have plenty of equity in the house. Um, there has been a change in the situation in that house. So the spouse has passed away. And as a result, they're selling the house. As we said, there are three things that can happen. They pay as agreed, which is the first couple of case studies we talked about. You get paid off early. In this case, 2 weeks after we bought the, actually, it's 3 weeks after we bought the note, about, I think like roughly 21 days, we were paid in full. Everything that we're owed, all the back payments, all the interest, all the late charges, everything. One of the
Right.
best performing notes I ever purchased.
Yeah. Those are home runs for certain.
Yeah, it does. It warms your heart.
But you don't know this right away, right? It comes out and, once you've determined past the due diligence that this is something worth pursuing. Um, and then you get even a better surprise behind that. They
Absolutely,
always say that when you're looking at notes, you should understand how you're going to proceed. What is the plan of action with
absolutely.
this note, right? And so you, in your mind, you're ready to put forth certain actions, and
Mhm.
you make one phone call and they're writing a check. They want to fix it. They want to do it now, that kind of thing. And it's like, okay, but that's a grade A non-performing note.
Yeah,
And there are scores and scores of these that are available for investing and to, bring high returns and great yields for the investor.
yeah,
And that, they should not be overlooked or left behind. And as a result, for me especially, it has, sharpened my skills as a note investor. Not take anything for granted, and just know that note investing, just like every house is different, every note is different, every borrower is different, and
absolutely,
so
absolutely.
it's worth doing that type of you know investigation or due diligence on the note to be able to get to the bottom of it and find out what the root looks like, as you would say.
Yeah,
So
yeah. So those are some of the case studies. One of the things we didn't talk about is, worst case, they fail to pay, and you go through foreclosure. My last
yeah,
case study on this was a property we bought. Again, it was grade A because there was a ton of equity in this place. The first, it's a non-performing second. The first was being paid. Um, we tried to contact the borrower with no success. Ultimately, we wound up foreclosing on that note. Roughly 14 months, 12 months, something like that. I think it was 12 months later we foreclosed on it. We were paid in full. Apparently, the borrower didn't want the property, and they allowed it to go to foreclosure so that they would not have to own that property anymore. It was a nice place too. So I don't know why, but apparently something happened and they decided they just didn't want the property and they let it go.
right. And that
So
happens.
yeah, but when we bought the note, and you hear us say grade A, we do grade notes as we're going through our due diligence. And these are all notes that came out as an A for us and for this one because there was a couple $100,000 worth of equity in the house.
Right.
So, we couldn't pass that one up.
We all know what to do with it if we have to, right?
Yeah. We know what to do. Yeah. Will yeah.
The
Um,
math is easy.
I would
Yeah.
say that. So anyway, we started the conversation. Kim, you're saying, well, it's a oxymoron to have non-performing grade A note, but that's what happens, and that's why we call them that. And as a result of all of this, we've developed a lot of experience, a lot of tools on how to manage notes. In
Yeah.
particular, we have become experts in managing non-performing notes, how to find them, how to buy them, how to work with borrowers to be able to get a positive outcome for us and also for the borrowers. As a result of all of that, we've developed a ton of relationships, and we're at a point now where we see more notes than we have the ability to be able to acquire. And we've been kind of teasing you guys about we're starting a fund. Well, one of my mentors saw what we were doing and
Yeah.
said, "Hey, I want some of that." And we said, "Well, what do you mean?" He goes, "Well, why don't you set up a fund?" So we'll be talking to you guys more in the future about the fund, but we're setting it up because my mentor said, "Hey, how can I participate? And also, how can we have other people participating in the things that you're doing?"
Right. And
Um,
and the uniqueness of this fund, right?
yes,
We have grade A non-performing notes for this fund, which is unique to, the note investing platform. While the
absolutely.
fund can, look at other options as well. Um, the fund is primarily for non-performing notes, and which yield higher, uh,
I would,
returns, and it's a fantastic opportunity. I'm trying not to get excited about it and go on and on about the fun, but who would have thought that our expertise in the non-performing note realm that would, you know, there's a space for it in for a fund. And so this is what we're moving forward with now. And of course, it stirred the pot. What do you mean? You know, a non-perform who in the world? And so
yeah,
I'm glad that people are asking. I'm glad that people are asking questions and want to know how this works. And so it's exciting.
absolutely, absolutely. So, um, wanted to again, give you a little bit of a flavor of what's happening with us. The fund is our big thing going forward. We want to be able to provide the opportunity for other people to participate in what we're seeing and what we're doing, to get some of that return, spread it around a little bit. So, just letting you know, there will be a more detailed podcast in the future where we talk in greater detail about the fund, exactly what the returns are, who can invest, how much you can invest, all that kind of stuff. But what we're trying to do now is just to answer some of the questions around why in the world are you guys doing that? And so hopefully that
Right.
will give you some guidance there. Kim, you want to mention the summit coming up?
Yeah, that's right. And we have the summit coming up in March, right, in
Yeah.
Florida. Um, and this will be an opportunity also, right, to engage with our investors, right, as well as our partners.
Yeah.
We say all the time, we're not the CPAs, we're not the attorneys, we're not the financial planners, but this will be an opportunity that we'll all be in the same room together so that we can ask the questions, so that we can, network, that we can grow comfortable in this space, and that it all begins to, fall in place, make sense, and feel comfortable and want to participate.
Yeah.
I'm looking forward to it because it'll be a good time to be had, of course,
Mhm.
uh, and that. But at the same time, it gives us a platform to be able to connect with everyone. Really really move our network into a place where we get to know each other even that much more, right? So
Absolutely.
excited.
Absolutely. All right. So
So stay tuned for all of that information as we post and prepare to, give it to everyone soon.
cool. I guess just to wrap up, if you like what you've heard, please subscribe, hit the like button, and stay tuned for more podcasts.
Yeah, absolutely. Take care, Jerry. I appreciate you.
Thanks.
All right.
Bye, Kim.
And that wraps up another episode of the Kim and Jerry podcast, brought to you by First Shield Financial, your trusted partner in cash flow investing. If you found value in today's discussion on mortgage note and passive real estate strategies, don't forget to hit that subscribe button, connect with the Shield, and stay in the loop for our upcoming opportunities and episodes packed with even more insights and inspiration.